All right, I'm going to make a controversial statement here, but I think the Euros are better than the World Cup. My ideal football tournament would be the Euros with Brazil and Argentina, and then maybe like one at large bid from North America and Asia, right? But like we need to get rid of the World Cup. I mean, maybe not get rid of it, but just stop caring about it as much. So there are two main reasons for this. The first one, I'm just gonna say it very quickly, is that the World Cup venues just fucking suck, and we've seen this in the Euros this year. We saw this in the Euros in 2021 and before that, is that we keep on having the World Cup being hosted in countries that do not care about football, right? So first of all, the only fans that are able to get there are people who are able to buy a plane ticket from America to Qatar, or people who are able to buy a ticket, I mean, more importantly, from like Spain to Qatar or Spain to South Africa. And it's like, why do we do that? Like, we're watching right now in the Euros, we're having these scenes on the streets of people from all over Europe who legitimately all just love and care about football, interact with each other, and it's just like a beautiful celebration of what football is all about. Instead, you have these countries. First of all, we're doing, we're hosting the World Cup in Qatar, in Russia, in Saudi Arabia. Like, is this really the countries that we want to be representing the world? And then second of all, like, none of the people in these countries care about football. Like, in Saudi Arabia, Jordan Henderson literally left Saudi because he was playing matches in front of crowds of like 1,000 people. These people don't care about the sport. Why are we hosting the sport around people who don't care about it, right? And forcing everybody around the world to fly to these areas in order to watch it. It's the same thing as hosting like the Cricket World Cup in like, Canada. Canada doesn't care about cricket. Why would we have it there, right? And it's clearly because like they're trying to market it, they're trying to like grow the sport. But I think the thing that really grows the sport is seeing people genuinely love the sport and like being drawn to that love and that affection. But second of all, like, the bigger problem with the World Cup, in my opinion, is just the fact that like the games just aren't really that interesting. Like, you really, by the way, the 2022 World Cup, I think, was an outlier in how many interesting games they had. But just look at this, right? Like you have all of these teams that like really shouldn't be there. Like I know Wales has historically been good because of Gareth Bale, but like obviously they've fallen off. Costa Rica is not really a good team. They really just have Neves, and that's it. And no team is winning because of the goalkeeper. Australia is terrible. Ghana is terrible. Saudi Arabia is terrible. Ecuador is terrible. Canada is good. Cameroon is bad. Tunisia is bad. South Korea, like, I know they have Heung-min Son and Min, and they have a couple of good players, but they're still not a really good team. And like you just go down the line, right? Like, Senegal is good because of Sadio Mane and Mendy, but like Iran is terrible, Qatar is terrible, and so like you have all of these games where it's just teams that are just like completely outmatched. Right, you have like Qatar versus Ecuador, which is two terrible teams, but then Qatar versus Senegal, Netherlands versus Qatar, Ecuador versus Senegal. Like, you just look at these matches and it's just like, why, like who enjoys watching this stuff? Right? Like, who enjoys watching a 6-2 England versus Iran blowout? Like, I know it's fun to watch the goals, but if you actually like enjoy watching football, watching one team just humiliate another team isn't actually that interesting, right? Or like Poland 2-0 versus Mexico, or like France 4-1 versus Australia. Like, did anybody wake up that day and think, oh my god, I really have to watch that France-Australia game, right? No. I mean, it's just bad. And then, by the way, like, the big problem with the World Cup is that they try to have proportional representation or close to proportional representation per each football league, right? So they try to have similar amount of people from UEFA as from AFC, as from the Asian Football League. But the problem is that UEFA is just way better. Like the countries in Europe care a lot more about football, spend a lot more time focused on football, and so they're a lot better at football than the other countries, right? So what happens is you have countries that should be competing in the World Cup that aren't, right? Famously in the last World Cup, you didn't have Italy. Italy had just won the Euros. They had literally won the Euros like not 365 days prior because of the COVID stuff, right? So you had this Italy team that had a good contention for being being the best team in the world because they had just won the Euros, but they weren't able to play because they have all these crazy rules on how teams from UEFA are able to qualify. And by the way, my family's from Poland. I support Poland, but like the fact that Italy was there and Poland wasn't is crazy, right? This group is actually pretty good. I'll give it to that group. That was a good group. But then you had Cameroon, and you just see these overmatched squads, right? But the beauty of the Euros, right, is that like you have a few powerhouse squads, right? Like Germany, Portugal, France, Spain, but then England, but then everyone else is like at the same level, right? So you still have interesting games going on constantly, right? Like Romania versus Ukraine. Like none of these teams are going to win, but at least if they're at like a similar level, and you can watch an interesting football match between these two teams, right? But you just don't see that in the World Cup, and it's just kind of disappointing. Like ideally, like they would just change the rules of the World Cup to allow more European squads in, limit the amount of Asian squads, kind of limit the amount of African squads as well, and just allow like two or three more UEFA squads. But they're not going to do that because FIFA is obviously like an incredibly corrupt organization, and it's based upon votes by country, not votes based off of actual power in football. And so you have this terrible system. And then like the bigger problem with the World Cup, I think specifically, is that clearly the players care a lot less about the World Cup than they used to. Like in the 1980s and the 1990s, and obviously before that too, the World Cup was like the pinnacle. Like for example, Diego Maradona is considered one of the two greatest footballers of all time, or at least was until Messi and Ronaldo. But like that's not important, right? But like he had never won a Champions League or a Europa League at the time, right? He had only won a World Cup and 2 Scudettos, right? But that was enough to propel him, right? But like if you had a player today, like if Kylian Mbappe never wins a Champions League, no one is gonna say he's like the best player of all time, right? Like the Champions League is the tournament, right? So you have this system where like the players don't really care that much because they're not really making money off of it. They're making money off their club contracts. And then you also don't really have a fan base there that really, really cares as much as you do in Germany. And it's just not that interesting. And then also like a separate problem with it, right, is that most of these teams that are playing against each other have absolutely no history against each other, right? So like the teams don't even really care that much, right? Because like the beauty of the Euros, like I'm recording this just after the Croatia-Albania match where they ended up tying, and like one of the reasons why Albania played so hard is because Croatia and Albania have about a 500-year history of hating each other, right? So you get to see this actual like tension play out on the pitch, right? You actually see this clash of cultures where in the World Cup you see Qatar faces Germany. They don't really care. The players don't really care. And it's just not that much fun to watch. So yeah, I think that the Euros are better than the World Cup. Sorry.